There is a specific lie that gets told to Western foreigners about the Philippines. It's been told for at least the last 15 years. It's been told by the tourism boards, by the property developers, by the YouTube channels, by retirement guides, and by the Filipinos themselves when they meet a Westerner in a bar in Angeles or a coffee shop in Cebu or at an airport lounge in Manila. It's told so often and by so many different voices that most of the people who move to the country arrive believing it without ever noticing that they were told it. And it's one of the most damaging lies I have ever come across in 20 years of watching Western foreigners make decisions about Southeast Asia. And the lie is this: the Philippines is easy because everyone speaks English. I want to sit with that for a moment before I explain what's wrong with it, because on the surface it sounds like it cannot possibly be a lie. English is genuinely widespread in the Philippines. English is one of the official languages. Filipino children are educated in English from primary school. Government business is conducted partly in English. The signs in Manila Airport are in English. The menus at the coffee shop are in English. The Filipina in the bar speaks better English than the German tourist sat next to her. So how can it be a lie to say that the country is easy because of it? I want to tell you about that. I've been thinking about this one for quite a long time, because it took me years to work out what was actually going on. And when I finally did, it explained a specific pattern I'd noticed but not understood, which is why long-term Western expats in the Philippines seem to hit a wall of frustration around year 3 or 4 that Western expats in Thailand or Vietnam or even Cambodia don't hit in quite the same way. There is a specific kind of loneliness and disorientation that catches Western foreigners in the Philippines that doesn't catch them in the same shape elsewhere in Southeast Asia. And once you understand why, you can't really understand not. The reason English is so damaging is not that the English is not real. The English is real. It is that the English convinces the Western foreigner he does not need to learn anything else. And because he does not need to learn anything else, he never actually enters the country. He stays on the surface, mediated by English, for as long as he lives there, and he never notices that the surface is a very thin layer that has almost no relationship to what is actually happening underneath. Let me be specific about what I actually mean by underneath. The Philippines is not really a country that runs in English. It's a country that runs in Tagalog in the Manila region, in Cebuano, in the Visayas, and much of Mindanao in other parts of Luzon, and in dozens of other regional languages in specific provinces. English is a language of formal government, of the courts, of business meetings, of tourism, and of the interactions Filipinos have with Westerners specifically. But English is not the language Filipinos speak among themselves. It is not the language that they think in. It is not the language that their family conversations happen in. It is not the language of the gossip network in the barangay. It's not the language of the deals being cut, the decisions being made, or the truths being spoken. The English the Western foreigner encounters is the front room of the country. The Tagalog or Cebuano is the kitchen, the bedroom, the family meeting, and the after-hours conversation. And a Western foreigner who arrives believing English is the language of the country ends up sitting in the front room for the rest of his life, being politely served the version of things he was going to be told anyway, while the actual life of the country happens 2 rooms over in a language he does not understand. This is a specific mechanism that catches so many Western foreigners out in the Philippines. In Thailand, in Vietnam, in Cambodia, the language barrier is obvious. You arrive and you can't read the menu. You can't understand the taxi driver. You can't follow the news. You cannot eavesdrop on the conversation at the next table. And because the barrier is obvious, the Western foreigner is forced to either learn some of the local language, hire people who can translate the world for him, or accept that he is a permanent outsider being managed by locals who see him clearly while he sees them dimly. Whichever path he chooses, he at least knows that the barrier exists. He can see it, feel it, and he can plan around it. In the Philippines, the barrier is invisible. Everything he encounters comes to him in English, so he assumes there is no barrier. He doesn't learn Tagalog because he doesn't need to. He doesn't hire a translator because he can order his own coffee and read his own menu. He does not see the barrier because the barrier has been politely disguised by a whole population that has been trained since primary school to switch into English the moment a Westerner is present and to switch back out of English the moment the Westerner leaves the room. So he never sees the switch. He never notices that the room he is in reconfigures itself as soon as he walks in and reconfigures itself back the second he walks out. And this is where the lie becomes damaging. Because the Western foreigner in the Philippines thinks he is engaging with the country when he is actually engaging with the Filipina customer service performance of the country. He thinks his Filipina girlfriend is being straight with him because they can have a full and proper conversation in English. He doesn't understand that the actual conversation about him is happening in Tagalog with her mother and her sister and her aunt, and he has no access to any of it. He thinks his Filipino business partner is being straight with him because the meetings are conducted in English. He doesn't understand that the actual decisions are being made in Tagalog after he has left the room. He thinks his Filipino neighbours are being straight with him too because they smile and greet him in English when he walks past. He does not understand that the actual community discussions of him and his household is happening in a barangay meeting he was never invited to, in a language he can't follow. Year 1, this doesn't matter. Year 2, it starts to catch up. Year 3, the wall arrives. Year 3 is when the Western foreigner in the Philippines begins to feel that something is a bit off. Not something specific, something diffuse. The relationships are not quite what they seemed. The friendships do not deepen the way they were supposed to. The business ventures do not perform the way that they were pitched, and the wife has become distant in ways he can't explain. The neighbours are polite but not close. The country he thought he understood turns out to have depths he cannot access, and the language that was supposed to be his bridge into the culture turns out to have been a mirror the culture was holding up to reflect his own expectations back at him. The specific loneliness that catches Western foreigners in the Philippines at year 3 is the loneliness of realizing that everything you thought was real communication was actually surface communication. That your Filipino wife loves you or does not love you, and you cannot really tell because your access to her actual thoughts runs through a language that she uses with you and only with you. That your business is doing well or being quietly hollowed out, and you cannot really tell because the operational language of the business is a language you don't fully understand. That your community accepts you or doesn't accept you, and you have no way to know because the conversations that would tell you either way happen after you leave. Let me give you a very specific illustration. Imagine you are sitting at a family dinner at your Filipino wife's parents' house in Cebu. There are 12 people around the table. Everybody is welcoming. Everybody smiles at you. Everybody speaks a little English to you and asks you how you like the Philippines. The conversation flows around you in a mix of English and Cebuano, mostly Cebuano when it is not directed at you specifically. You catch a few words, you laugh when people laugh because the atmosphere seems light. You feel included. You go home thinking that was a great evening and that your wife's family is warm and welcoming. You don't know that for 2 hours at the dinner, the family was actively discussing a financial request that you are about to make. You do not know that the sister was arguing that they should ask for more, and that the mother was defending you against the more aggressive pitch framing. You don't know that the brother was mocking your accent when your wife left the room. You don't know that the youngest cousin was translating a joke into Cebuano at your expense that made everyone at the table laugh at a moment when you were smiling because you thought you were part of the laughter. All of that happened in the room you were in, at the meal you were part of, involving people who were addressing you in English 1 second and switching back to Cebuano the next. And you have no way of knowing any of it happened at all, because the whole switching apparatus is smooth, effortless, and completely opaque to the Westerner who doesn't have the language. Now imagine that dynamic across 3 or 4 years, across dozens of dinners, hundreds of small interactions, a whole marriage, a whole business, a whole neighborhood. Every one of those interactions was operating on 2 levels. the English level you thought you were participating in, and the Cebuano or Tagalog level that was happening underneath, that you had no access to, that shaped the actual decisions being made about you and about your money and about your future. 3 years of that adds up to a very specific kind of realization, which is that you have been living inside a performance, and the performance was polite enough that you never noticed until the accumulated evidence became too heavy to ignore. I have watched this pattern hit man after man in the Philippines, and every single time the man cannot articulate what has actually gone wrong, because the wrongness is not any specific event. It is the cumulative discovery that the country he was living in for the last 3 or 4 years was not the country he thought he was living in. It was a customer service layer of a country, and the actual country was underneath it the whole time. Compare this to Thailand. I'm not saying that Thailand is easier. I have made plenty of videos about the ways Thailand is genuinely difficult. But the Thai language barrier is obvious from day one. The Western foreigner arrives and knows he cannot communicate. He either learns some Thai, hires help, or accepts that he is going to live in a small English-speaking bubble inside a larger Thai-speaking country. Whichever he chooses, he knows what he is choosing. He can see the layers. He knows there is a Thai country he is not fully accessing. He can decide how much energy to put into accessing it and how much to leave alone. The relationship between his English-speaking bubble and the wider Thai country is transparent to him because the barrier is transparent. In the Philippines, the barrier is opaque because the barrier is dressed up as its absence, and the man who does not know there is a barrier cannot possibly navigate around it because he does not believe it exists. So what this means practically, it means the Western foreigner who moves to the Philippines and does not put serious energy into learning any of the local languages is going to hit the year 3 wall, and he's going to hit it without any warning, and he's going to have no framework for understanding why the country stopped feeling right. It means the relationship he builds are going to be shallower than they appear, because the deeper layers of those relationships are being conducted in languages he can't access. It means the business decisions that he makes are going to be based on information filtered through an English medium that has been curated for his consumption rather than being genuinely accurate. It means the community he thinks he's being part of is a community he's being politely tolerated by at best, because his lack of language means he can't participate in the actual life of the barangay he lives in. And it means the biggest lie about the Philippines, the one that tourism boards and property developers and those expat YouTube channels have been telling for 15 years, is the specific lie that has done the most damage to the specific demographic most vulnerable to it. Older Western men on modest pensions looking for connection, comfort, and second chapters in a country they believed they could easily enter because everybody spoke English. They could not enter it. They were shown into the front room and told that that was the country. The rest of the house was closed to them the whole time. That is what I wanted to say today. The English does not make the Philippines easy. The English makes the Philippines harder to read than any other country in Southeast Asia, because it disguises the layers that in every other country in the region are honestly on display. And the Western foreigner who arrives believing the English is his bridge into the country is arriving with the wrong tool and does not find out until he is too committed to leave. Thanks for tuning in to today's deep dive, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers and bye for now.